The developer's offer sat on Claire's kitchen table. $8,000 for 2 acres of worthless land in a condemned barn. Her sister Vanessa had laughed when she'd heard. "Take it," she'd said over the phone. "It's $8,000 more than that dump is worth." But that was before Claire found the hidden room beneath the foundation. 6 weeks earlier, Claire stood at the end of the aisle in her mother's altered wedding dress, watching the church doors. Tyler was 20 minutes late. 30. The pianist had cycled through her repertoire twice. The guests had stopped whispering and started checking their phones. At 45 minutes, Tyler's best man walked down the aisle alone, his face gray. He handed Claire a folded note and wouldn't meet her eyes. "I can't do this. I'm sorry. The ring is at my apartment." The church erupted in murmurs. Claire stood there, bouquet trembling in her hands, while 200 people watched her humiliation unfold in real time. Her father gripped her elbow. "Come on, honey. Let's go." She walked back down that aisle in her wedding dress, alone, past the faces contorted with pity and shock and barely concealed fascination. Someone's phone was up, recording. By tonight, she'd be a TikTok trend, abandoned bride. Outside, Vanessa was smoking by the limo, still in her maid of honor dress. "What a bastard," she said, not quite managing to hide the satisfaction in her voice. Vanessa had never liked Tyler. Or maybe she'd just never liked Claire being happy. "I need to get out of this dress," Claire whispered. At her apartment, the one she'd planned to leave today to move into Tyler's condo, Claire peeled off the gown and sat on the bathroom floor in her slip. Her phone buzzed relentlessly. Texts from friends, family, acquaintances she hadn't spoken to in years, everyone demanding details or offering hollow sympathy. One text stood out. From a number she didn't recognize. "Ms. Donovan, this is Martin Chun from Chun & Associates. I've been trying to reach you regarding your Aunt Dorothy's estate. Please call at your earliest convenience." Claire almost deleted it. Aunt Dorothy had died 3 months ago. Ancient, reclusive Dorothy who'd lived alone on the outskirts of town and hadn't spoken to the family in 15 years. Claire had gone to the funeral. There'd been 11 people there. But anything was better than thinking about Tyler, so she called. "Ms. Donovan, thank you for calling back. I'm handling your aunt's estate distribution." She left specific instructions. "Your sister Vanessa received the house and its contents. You received the property at 447 Marsh Creek Road, 2 acres, and the barn structure." Claire tried to remember it. A rotting barn surrounded by scrub grass and poison ivy. She'd driven past it once as a teenager. Even then it had looked condemned. "The barn is boarded up," Mr. Chin continued. "Structurally unsound according to county records. Your aunt paid property taxes on it for 32 years, but never renovated. I have the deed and keys when you're ready." "What's it worth?" A pause. "The land appraises at around $8,000. The structure has negative value, demolition costs." "I'm sorry, Miss Donovan. Your sister received the bulk of the estate." Of course she had. Vanessa always got the better deal. Better grades, better job, better everything. Even their dead aunt had played favorites. Claire picked up the deed the next morning, still numb. Mr. Chin handed her a manila envelope containing paperwork and 2 old brass keys. "Your aunt left a note," he said, sliding across a sealed letter. In her car, Claire opened it. "Claire, you always notice the small things. The robin's nest in the gutter. The loose board on my porch. The way light moved through water. Your sister looks but doesn't see. The barn is yours because you'll understand what to do with it. The foundation is everything. Love, Aunt Dorothy." The note made no sense. Aunt Dorothy had been half senile toward the end, talking to people who weren't there, insisting she'd hidden treasure like some addled pirate. Still, Claire had nothing else to do. Tyler had changed the locks on his condo. She'd taken a leave of absence from her data entry job. She couldn't face the pitying looks. She drove out to Marsh Creek Road with bolt cutters and a flashlight. The barn looked worse than she remembered, with siding hung in strips. The roof sagged dangerously. County condemnation notices covered the door. Claire cut through the chain and stepped inside. Dust motes swirled in shafts of light from gaps in the walls. The interior was empty except for rotting hay bales and rusted farm equipment. The floorboards creaked ominously under her weight. The foundation is everything. Claire knelt and examined the floor. It was old pine, weathered to silver. She stomped her foot. The sound was hollow. Too hollow. She found a crowbar in her truck and spent an hour prying up boards. Beneath them was dirt. She dug with her hands, then drove to a hardware store and bought a proper shovel. By sunset, she'd uncovered it. A concrete hatch, 2 feet square, with a recessed metal handle. Her heart hammered as she pulled. The hatch lifted with a grinding sound. Below was a ladder descending into darkness. Claire shone her flashlight down. The beam illuminated concrete walls and what looked like a sealed door at the bottom. She tested the ladder, solid metal, bolted into the concrete. Whatever this was, it wasn't recent construction. She climbed down into the dark, her breath echoing off the walls. At the bottom was a steel door with a keyhole. She tried the first brass key. It turned smoothly, the lock clicking open like it had been oiled yesterday. Claire pulled the door open and stepped into a climate-controlled room filled with glass display cases. Inside the cases were documents in protective sleeves, leather-bound books, and rows upon rows of old stock certificates. She approached the nearest case. The certificate inside was ornate, dated 1952, Standard Oil Company, 1,000 shares. The next case held certificates for IBM, General Electric, Coca-Cola, dozens of blue-chip companies, thousands of shares, all dated between 1948 and 1965. Claire's hands shook as she photographed everything. She didn't understand stocks, but she understood that Aunt Dorothy, poor, reclusive Dorothy who'd lived in a drafty house and worn the same coat for 20 years, had hidden something massive under a condemned barn. On a shelf at the back, she found a ledger. Aunt Dorothy's handwriting filled the pages. Purchase dates, share counts, companies. The final page had a note dated 6 months before her death. Total estimated value, if never touched, $180 to $240 million. But there's more. Check the bonds. Claire looked at the cases again. In the corner were wider drawers. She opened the first. U.S. Treasury bonds. Hundreds of them. She opened the next drawer. Municipal bonds. Corporate bonds. All carefully preserved, all decades old. She didn't know how much they were worth, but the number in Aunt Dorothy's ledger couldn't be real. It couldn't be. Her phone had no signal underground. Claire climbed back up, sat in the barn's fading light, and called the first financial advisor she found online. "I need someone to evaluate historical stock certificates and bonds," she said when a woman answered. Immediately, Naomi Friedman arrived the next afternoon in a BMW, carrying a leather case and an expression of polite skepticism. "Ms. Donovan, I appreciate the call, but I should mention that most old stock certificates people find are worthless. Companies merge, dissolve, or the shares are invalidated. Just look," Claire said. She led Naomi down into the hidden room. The advisor's skepticism evaporated the moment she saw the display cases. "Oh my God," Naomi whispered. She approached the Standard Oil certificates like they might vanish. She examined the dates, the signatures, the corporate seals. She pulled out a tablet and started scanning. These shares would have split multiple times. Standard Oil became Exxon, Mobil, Chevron. If these are legitimate. She worked for 3 hours, photographing, calculating, cross-referencing. Claire sat on the ladder, watching. Finally, Naomi looked up, her face pale. "Ms. Donovan, do you have any idea what you're sitting on?" The note said $180 million. "Your aunt's estimate was conservative. These certificates represent original shares purchased in the 1950s and never sold. They've split dozens of times. The Standard Oil shares alone are worth approximately $40 million. The IBM shares." She consulted her tablet. "Another $65 million. That's not even counting the bonds." Claire's vision blurred. "How much total? I need professional authentication and a complete audit, but my preliminary estimate?" Naomi met her eyes. "You're looking at $280 to $325 million. The number was absurd. Impossible. Claire had $1,847 in her checking account. She'd been abandoned at the altar 3 weeks ago. She lived in a studio apartment with a broken dishwasher. And now some financial advisor was telling her she was worth more than $250 million. "I don't understand," Claire said. "How did Aunt Dorothy?" Naomi opened the ledger, studying Dorothy's notes. She bought these shares between 1948 and 1965. Post-war boom, early computing age, oil expansion. She was a secretary, according to these notes. Saved every penny and invested in the biggest companies of the era. Then she never touched them. Just let them grow for 60 years. Why hide them? People knew she'd worked on Wall Street. Maybe she didn't want family pressure to share. Maybe she was protecting the investments from being liquidated. Naomi gestured at the climate-controlled room. This setup cost serious money. She was preserving wealth for someone. For you. Claire thought of Aunt Dorothy at family gatherings, quiet and strange, always watching. She'd sent Claire birthday cards every year. Small watercolors Dorothy had painted herself. Never more than that. Claire had kept them all. You always noticed the small things. That night, Claire sat in her apartment with Naomi's preliminary report. The advisor had been clear. Don't tell anyone until authentication is complete. Don't sign anything. Don't make promises. And hire a lawyer. A good one. But Claire's phone was already ringing. Vanessa. Hey, how's the condemned barn? Her sister's voice dripped with false sympathy. I heard you've been out there. Claire, just sell it to that developer. Take the $8,000 and move on. After Tyler. She let the sentence hang. Claire's jaw tightened. After Tyler had left her at the altar, she meant. After Claire had become the family's latest disaster. I'm thinking about it, Claire said carefully. Good. Because honestly, Aunt Dorothy was crazy at the end. Leaving you that death trap was practically an insult. At least I got something useful. After they hung up, Claire pulled up Vanessa's Instagram. Her sister had posted photos of Aunt Dorothy's house, or what used to be Dorothy's house. Now the walls were painted trendy gray. New furniture filled the rooms. The caption read, Transformation Tuesday. Turning this old lady house into my dream home. Blessed inheritance design goals. Claire closed the app. She thought about calling Vanessa, telling her the truth. But she remembered every dismissive comment, every time Vanessa had. Made her feel small. Every time her sister had gotten the better deal and made sure Claire knew it. Not yet, Claire thought. The authentication took 6 weeks. Teams of specialists examined every certificate, verified every corporate seal, traced every stock split and merger. Naomi coordinated with auction houses and private collectors for the rare bonds. A law firm, the kind with marble lobbies and partners who'd worked for senators, handled the legal structure. Claire went to work every day, processed data entry orders, and said nothing. Tyler had tried to reach out twice. She'd blocked his number. Her mother called weekly, asking about the barn. Just sell it, honey. Move on with your life. Claire smiled into the phone and lied. I'm working on it, Mom. The final authentication report arrived on a Tuesday. Naomi delivered it in person, her hands trembling as she opened the folder. Total authenticated value, $312 million. We found additional bonds in the back drawers, Depression-era municipals that matured at extraordinary rates. Ms. Donovan, you are one of the wealthiest women in the state. Claire stared at the number. It still didn't feel real. What do I do now? Whatever you want. Sell everything and take cash. Hold the stocks and collect dividends. Donate it. Spend it. It's yours. That night, Claire stood in the hidden room one last time before it was sealed and secured by professional vault services. She looked at the cases, the certificates, the evidence of Aunt Dorothy's quiet genius. On impulse, she opened the ledger to the last page. There was a note she'd missed, written in the margin. Claire, they'll say you're lucky. They'll say you don't deserve it. They'll come with hands out and stories ready. Remember, I chose you because you see what matters. The money is a tool. Use it to build something beautiful. Don't let anyone make you small. Aunt Claire took a photo of the note. Then she climbed out of the vault, locked it, and drove home to plan. She had work to do. The press release hit the news 3 months later. Local woman discovers $312 million fortune in deceased aunt's estate. Establishes foundation for financial literacy. Claire's phone exploded. Reporters, long-lost cousins, investment firms, charities, scammers, everyone. She ignored them all. Her new lawyers handled the media. Her financial team handled the fortune. Claire focused on building what mattered. The Dorothy Donovan Foundation launched with $50 million in initial funding. Its mission? Teaching financial literacy to women, especially those from working-class backgrounds. Free workshops, mentorship programs, investment education. Everything Aunt Dorothy had taught herself, Claire would make accessible to everyone. But first, she had personal business to handle. Vanessa showed up at Claire's new office unannounced, pushing past the receptionist. Claire's assistant tried to stop her, but Claire waved her off. It's fine. Let her in. Her sister looked different. Thinner. The confidence that usually radiated from her had dimmed. She sat down without being invited. You lied to me, Vanessa said. I didn't say anything untrue. You let me think. You knew what was under that barn, and you didn't tell me. Claire folded her hands on her desk. You called it a death trap. An insult. You told me to take $8,000 and be grateful. We're sisters, Claire. You should have shared. Claire's voice stayed level. Like you shared Aunt Dorothy's house? Oh wait, you sold that for $340,000 and didn't offer me a penny. Posted about your dream home while I was still sleeping on a pull-out couch. Vanessa's face flushed. That's different. The house was mine. Dorothy left it to me. And the barn was mine. Dorothy left it to me because she knew I'd actually appreciate it, not just what it could buy me. So what, you're going to cut me off? Pretend we're not family. Claire studied her sister. She remembered childhood. Vanessa always first, always best, always right. She remembered Vanessa's face at the wedding that wasn't. That flicker of satisfaction that Claire had finally failed at something dramatic enough to matter. I'm not cutting you off, Claire said. But I'm not funding your lifestyle, either. You want to be in my life? Actually be my sister. Not a stranger who calls when she needs something. Vanessa stood abruptly. This money has changed you. No, Claire said. It's let me see clearly. After Vanessa left, Claire pulled up the foundation's website. Applications were already flooding in. Women who wanted to learn investing, mothers teaching daughters about money, students trying to understand retirement accounts. The response was overwhelming. Her assistant knocked. Ms. Donovan? Tyler Brennan is here. Says he needs to speak with you. Claire's stomach clenched, but she nodded. Send him in. Tyler looked terrible. Unshaven, rumpled suit, eyes shadowed. He sat down like a man approaching a judge. I don't expect forgiveness, he started. Good. You won't get it. I panicked. The wedding, the commitment. I made a mistake. You left me at the altar in front of 200 people, Claire said. You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. I want to fix this. I've been in therapy. I understand now what I threw away. Let me stop you there. Claire leaned forward. You don't want to fix anything. You saw the news. You know about the money. And you think you can walk back in here and what? Apologize your way into $312 million. Tyler's face reddened. That's not. I came because I love you. You love the idea of being married to a wealthy woman. You didn't love me when I was doing data entry and eating ramen. You certainly didn't love me enough to show up on our wedding day. Claire, please, no. The word came out firm, final. You had your chance. You walked away. I'm not a consolation prize you can claim now that the stakes have changed. She pressed a button on her desk. Security appeared in the doorway. Please escort Mr. Brennan out. Tyler stood, his face contorted with frustration. You'll regret this. When you're alone and miserable. I've been alone and miserable, Claire said. It felt a lot like being abandoned at the altar by a coward. This, she gestured at her office, her life, her future. This feels like freedom. After he was gone, Claire sat in silence for a long moment. Then she opened her laptop and got to work. The foundation needed curriculum development. She had meetings with universities about partnerships. She was designing a scholarship program for women studying finance. 3 months later, Claire stood at the podium in a hotel ballroom, addressing 200 women at the foundation's first major workshop. She wore a simple blue suit. No wedding dress, no desperate hope, no waiting for someone else to validate her worth. My Aunt Dorothy died believing that financial education was power, Claire said. She spent 60 years building a fortune in secret because she didn't trust anyone else to understand its value. But she trusted me to share it. So that's what we're doing here. She clicked to the next slide, basic investing principles. You don't need a business degree. You don't need family money. You need knowledge, patience, and the courage to bet on yourself. My aunt started with a secretary's salary and turned it into hundreds of millions. Imagine what you could do. After the workshop, women lined up to talk to her. Single mothers, recent divorcees, young professionals trying to escape debt. Claire listened to each story, saw herself in their struggles, and felt something she hadn't felt since finding that vault. Purpose. That night, she drove out to Marsh Creek Road one last time. The barn had been demolished, too dangerous to preserve. In its place was a community center, still under construction. The Dorothy Donovan Center for Women's Financial Education. It would open next spring. Claire stood in the foundation's footprint, literal and metaphorical, and thought about Aunt Dorothy. The strange old woman who'd painted watercolor birthday cards and hidden millions in the dark, who'd seen something in Claire that no one else had. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Saw the workshop photos. I'm proud of you, honey. Another from a college friend. You're doing amazing things. One from Naomi. Preliminary Q4 report. Foundation impact exceeding projections. Dorothy would be proud. Claire smiled. She'd started the year abandoned and humiliated, wearing a wedding dress in an empty church. She'd end it wealthy beyond imagination, yes, but more importantly, free. Free from Tyler's cowardice, Vanessa's superiority, the weight of everyone else's expectations. She thought about the developer's offer, $8,000 for worthless land. She thought about what she'd built instead, $312 million, a foundation, a future, proof that being underestimated was sometimes the best advantage. The moon rose over the construction site. Claire took one last photo, then drove home to her real house. Not too big, not too showy, just right. Tomorrow she had meetings, workshops to plan, women to help. But tonight, she sat in her study surrounded by Aunt Dorothy's watercolor cards, now professionally framed. The small things, the careful attention, the ability to see value where others saw junk. Claire opened her laptop and pulled up the Foundation's application portal. Hundreds of women waiting for a chance to learn, to grow, to build their own fortunes from whatever small things they had. She started reading applications, taking notes, approving scholarships. Outside, the world slept. Inside, Claire worked, building something beautiful from the ruins of what everyone else had thought was worthless. Just like Aunt Dorothy taught her. Just like she'd teach everyone else.